Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute so you guys can all see our faces. We're going to give it just another 60 or so seconds. Welcome, welcome. Mhm. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Yutang, for confirming that you can hear and see. Hi, everyone. Do me a favor and post in the chat where you're from, what you're expecting, what company you're with. Share a little bit about what you're hoping to learn on today's webinar. This webinar is going to be extremely interactive as possible, as the majority of our webinars at the Cybersecurity Marketing Society aim to be. So, hi from Michigan. Hey, George. Awesome. Stephanie, Scott, where are you dialing in from?
Boston
Boston.
or
And I'm in
Boston.
and I'm in Ocean City, Maryland.
Awesome. We got another Maryland in the chat too. We have
Oh yeah,
Atlanta.
Jordan.
Hey
Yeah.
Jordan, how you doing? All right. Folks, welcome, welcome. We're going to kick it off right on time. Thank you for joining another amazing webinar by the Cybersecurity Marketing Society. So, just to back up a little, the Cybersecurity Marketing Society is a community for marketers in the security industry in particular. We have over 5,000 members from more than 1,600 security product and services companies, and we host educational events. We have media, we have our annual conference, Cyber Marketing Con, coming up in November. And our goal is to help marketers in cybersecurity be successful however we can, whether it is career services, helpful and friendly networking in the industry, or even educational and industry resources like the State of Cybersecurity Buyers Report. So I am so very excited because today we're going to have a fantastic webinar that's very educational and extremely statistics heavy. So can't wait for that. Sorry, folks. I'm a little bit getting over a cold from the latest Hacker Summer Camp. And yeah, so to kick off today, before we jump into the actual content and before I introduce our amazing panelists, a couple of housekeeping things. Yes, this webinar is being recorded. So it will be available for replay quickly after the webinar ends. We are absolutely, I think, going to share the slides, Stephanie and Scott, if that's okay with y'all.
Mhm.
Awesome. There's a lot of great statistics and a lot of great data in these slides. And as always, we want this to be extremely interactive. So if you have questions, if you want a deeper dive on a stat, if you have something relevant to ask during the webinar, even something slightly irrelevant, feel free to post in the chat or the Q&A. I will be watching both of those and gently interrupting Scott and Stephanie as questions arise so that we can answer them quickly for you. And of course, if we don't have an answer, if Scott or Stephanie need to dig into it deeper, we'll compile all of your questions and reply with a blog post later, answering all of them as we typically do here at the Society. So we're super excited. Today, let me pull up our slide deck and I'm going to introduce our fabulous, fabulous panelists. And thank you, panelists. Thank you, Future B2B, for supporting the community. And you will also be at Cyber Marketing Con, and that's super exciting. All right. So, for the past 3 or 4 years, the Cybersecurity Marketing Society and Future B2B slash Actual Tech Media have partnered on a state of cybersecurity buying report. So, what has changed from year over year in the way that security teams and IT teams buy cybersecurity and security products and services and solutions? It's always really, really interesting. So, today I'm super excited to introduce Stephanie Corby. She is VP Market Lead of the IT slash tech vertical at Future B2B, and Scott Bekker, IT tech content host and contributor at Future B2B. They both live in this world all day in the world of security buying and in security solution procurement by security buying teams. And they're here to share some awesome statistics facts from their latest research. So I'm going to pass the mic over to you, Stephanie.
Great. Thank you, Gianna. And thank you so much for advancing the slides. I really appreciate it. Before we get into the research, and could you advance to the next slide, Gianna? Oh, there we go. Great. Well, thank you, Gianna. Before we get into the research today, I want to give all of you a little context on the perspective we're bringing today. Across Future B2B, we reach more than 800,000 IT, cybersecurity, and business decision makers globally. And what's particularly important is that our reach extends across the broader buying team, not just security leadership. That matters because cybersecurity decisions are increasingly a team sport, as I know a lot of you have discovered. The CISO is obviously a critical stakeholder, but today's decisions are also involve IT leaders, security practitioners, business leaders, finance, and other functions across the organization. So for marketers, the opportunity isn't simply about reaching more people, it's about surrounding the buying committee and building influence with the different stakeholders who shape the decision. But reach really isn't just the starting point. The bigger question is, reach really is just the starting point. The bigger question is, once you've reached those buyers, how do you stay relevant and influential as they move through their buying journey? So next slide, please. That's where our portfolio at Future B2B gives us an interesting window into the cybersecurity journey. We're engaging these audiences at very different moments and at very different depths. So SmartBrief, for example, provides that frequent touch point, helping security and IT professionals discover issues and stay current on what's happening in the market. IT Pro takes buyers deeper into independent research and evaluation, helping them understand challenges, evaluate approaches, and make sense of potential solutions. And Actual Tech Media provides deeper technical education and validation through webinars, expert-led content. Scott does a lot of these webinars for us at B2B and other immersive experiences as well. So we're seeing buyers as they move from discovery and education into active research, evaluation, and ultimately decision-making. And across those interactions, one thing is becoming very, very clear. The cybersecurity buying journey itself is changing. Next slide, please, Gianna. And that's really the backdrop for our discussion today and what we're going to be previewing today in the way of research. When we step back and look across all of the findings from this survey, we saw 6 shifts that really stood out to us. And I think each has an important implication for cybersecurity marketers. The first is AI, obviously. Everyone, that's all we talk about all day long, pretty much. It's fundamentally changing the security conversation. Buyers aren't just thinking about AI as another technology investment. They're thinking about the new risks it creates, obviously, while at the same time increasingly expecting AI capabilities to be built into security solutions that you are marketing. The second shift is that cybersecurity really has become a business priority, and that's not really new, but it's definitely becoming more and more so as time goes on. It's no longer viewed purely as an IT or security issue. There's much greater visibility and scrutiny from leadership around risk, resilience. In particular, we're seeing a huge rise in resilience and where, excuse me, and where security dollars are being spent overall. At the same time, the threat landscape has gotten much more complicated. As you know, there isn't one dominant threat story anymore. Buyers are thinking about AI, ransomware, phishing, identity compliance, often all at the same time. And that complexity is driving 2 other shifts we're seeing: a greater focus on resilience, as I mentioned, and a real desire for simplicity. Buyers aren't only asking, how do I prevent an attack? They're also asking, how quickly can we recover when something does happen? And at the same time, they're looking for ways to simplify their environments, fewer tools, better integration, less complexity, rather than continuing to add to the stack and just have it build and build and build. And then there's the final shift, which is one you'll hear us come back to throughout today's discussion. Security has to prove business value. Number one and most important thing. Budget pressure hasn't gone away, as we all know. Buyers increasingly need to justify cybersecurity investments, not only in terms of protection, but in terms of risk reduction, resilience, operational impact, and ultimately business value. So when you put all these shifts together, all 6 of them, I think there's a bigger message for marketers. The old cybersecurity marketing playbook isn't enough anymore. Buyers don't just need to hear that your solution stops threats. They need to understand where you fit into a much broader business, technology, and risk agenda, and why your solution deserves their investment. And that's really what we're going to start unpacking as we get into the research today. With that, before we get into the data, I'm curious about what all of you are seeing from the marketer side. We asked buyers what matters to them, but what's proving hardest for you when you're trying to influence them. So, Gianna, I believe we have a poll that we're going to pull up here.
We have launched a poll. Yes.
Yay!
And
Very
it's
exciting.
working correctly. So go ahead and answer. Oh, all the questions. Yay, people are answering it. So folks, fill in the poll. We'll do some polls. We'll share the poll data with everyone here on the webinar as well. And of course, it's anonymous. But go ahead and fill in the poll. We'll leave it up for a minute. And we'll end the poll, share the results, and make sure you get it afterwards as well.
Great.
We need some poll music while the poll
Do,
is up.
do, 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 do. Yeah, here we go.
Jeopardy, the old classic.
The old classic.
I'm a true Jeopardy nerd.
Awesome. I'm seeing let's do last 5 seconds for filling in the poll. Thank you everyone who participated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. I'm going to share results too.
Interesting.
So majority. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Stephanie.
No, go ahead. Gianna, go ahead.
So biggest challenge right now for the audience here today in influencing security buyers is engaging buyers early enough in their journey, which is extremely interesting because the way that buyers are finding solutions and like down selecting is changing with this world of AI and
Absolutely.
dark funnel, etc. And then it looks like second one is differentiating in a crowded cyber market, which has been a refrain and a challenge for marketers since I think the dawn of this industry and the dawn of our community for sure.
That is true. Well, that is interesting results. And thanks everyone for contributing there. Keep those responses in mind because I think you'll see some interesting connections as we get into the data. And with that, let me turn things over to my colleague, Scott Bekker, who is going to take us inside the research a little bit more, kind of dig under the hood a little bit, and unpack what cybersecurity buyers are telling us about their priorities, investments, and expectations heading into 2027. So, Scott, over to you.
Super. Thanks a lot, Stephanie, and great setup of what we're going to look at for the next part of the session. So, before we start digging into the data, let's just take a quick look at the methodology so you all know where this data is coming from. Who are the cybersecurity buyers that we talked to? Well, so we did an online survey, the Future B2B audience via email. And again, as Stephanie showed on that previous slide, that included the IT Pro audience, Smart Brief Technology Newsletters audience, and the actual tech media audience. And this survey went to the US portion of our audience. So these responses represent US organizations, not international. And we got a healthy response with 800 completed surveys, all in June and July. So this data is very fresh. They came across the IT and business spectrum in terms of job titles, but it's weighted toward management roles. You can see on here, 28% were managers, 25% had C-suite titles, like CEO, CIO, CFO. 11% were directors and 9% were senior management. So, you add those up, we're looking at something like 73% of the respondents in management roles. And the last bit of demographics that I want to talk about is organization size. And as you can see, it's a pretty nice, even, representation across organizational sizes. So there's a good contingent of very large organizations with more than 1,000 employees. There's solid groups in the mid-size and SMB categories as well. So there's a lot of great data in here that we were excited to get out to you all. But as you can see, we just stopped collecting this data. So today's session is a preview of some of the headline numbers and data points over the next couple of months. We're going to be preparing that full report that Gianna was referring to, and we'll present it live at Cyber Marketing Con 2026 in Austin in November. So we hope to see some of you there and chat more about it then. And as Gianna mentioned, this will be, I think, our third time or possibly fourth presenting this
We've
report.
known each other so long. It's like, who knows?
That's right. But again, you're getting a sneak peek here today. Okay, so let's get into our first slide of results. So first off, we wanted to give you a sense of where cybersecurity ranked among all tech spending priorities for our audience, which we think is pretty representative of tech buyers generally. And as you can see here, this is a dense slide, but cybersecurity ranks really high. It's the blue bar is showing that a technology was a primary focus in 2026. Red indicates it will be a primary focus in 2027. These can add up to more than 100% because respondents could say each technology was a focus for each year. But so AI ranks first, and cybersecurity is second. And this really tracks with recent news. Just as AI becomes more of an agentic story and a security story, AI isn't unrelated to cybersecurity. In fact, it's becoming totally intertwined, and we're going to see that in multiple places in the data here today. The biggest stories in IT recently on itpro.com and everywhere are about, the foundational models breaking out of their sandboxes and causing autonomous, security issues, Mythos and OpenAI's new model. So we're seeing priorities around AI become also about governance and compliance and security. And I think we're seeing that here. Meanwhile, cybersecurity ranks straight up second in this question. So it's clearly in a high spending priority for our audience in the 2026-2027 cycle. And just there's a bunch of other categories in there. You'll notice physical security as well, disaster recovery. So you've got other priorities in the cybersecurity, cyber reliance area.
Hey,
But
Scott, I have a
yeah,
question. For the 14% of folks who are not a focus on AI, do you have any? I know this is like really early and you haven't done like the full analysis yet.
yeah.
Do you have any idea why they don't have a focus on AI?
No, that's definitely something we're going to dig into because that's a number 14%, and what is it on cybersecurity? I think it
Yeah,
might be
17%.
17%.
They're
So
like, nah, not really a focus. Like, okay,
I
guys.
have a weird thought, like maybe it might be some of the smaller organizations that are still sort of figuring things out and don't have the resources internally to sort of be managing that more proactively. So it might be just sort of a wait and see kind of until they're ready. And that, I don't know, just a crack. That's just a guess, but we need to dig in more on that for sure.
Yeah, and I love that thought, Stephanie. I mean, especially, the kind of people who are sort of served by MSPs, might be sort of waiting for their MSPs to come to them and talk about some of the priorities there.
That's a great thought.
All right. Well, on the in the next slide, let's take another view of business priorities. And this illuminates a little more, I think, what's going on with AI and cybersecurity when it comes to customer needs and expectations. So the red bar means a priority is becoming more important. Black bar is no change. Gray bar is less important. Cybersecurity is becoming more important to 65% of the respondents. And that's one of the numbers that Stephanie called out at the beginning there. And if you look at the short gray bar in front of it, Gianna, getting ahead of your question there too, it's the only priority with a single digit response in that less important category. So in other words, cybersecurity is the category with the fewest number of people saying it's becoming less important. Um, and then AI readiness or understanding is down at sixth on that list. So, in combination with that previous slide, what I think we're seeing is that people are starting to understand that huge security component that AI is driving. So while the AI readiness spending is important to transform the business and seek out opportunities, Securing against AI threats and the speed and autonomy of AI attacks are really top of mind for IT buyers in the survey. And we'll have more data on that coming up in a few minutes, so stay tuned. And then I've got one more slide to sort of reinforce this message from a different question. So for this question, we looked at top cybersecurity threat priorities, and we asked respondents to identify their top three. And there you go. If you look at number one, that top, threat priority is AI threats at 34%. And you can make a good argument as well that number two, the phishing attacks, is an AI threat also. Phishing's been a big problem for years. It's a key attack vector for ransomware, as everybody knows. But of course, even the early generation public LLM releases vastly improved the ability of attackers to make their phishing messages more effective. It totally took away one of the key defenses in malware, which I call the English as a second language defense, where you could sort of identify a phishing message by its non-native use of English. And AI has taken that defense away. Number three in the priorities list also has a huge AI component, malware, with the frontier models getting really good at discovering new vulnerabilities and rapidly writing zero-day exploits. Malware has become a bigger and even faster paced threat than it was. Now, you can see on here there are, other long-time security issues that are here with pretty good priority. There's plenty of priority mind share for things like password attacks, ransomware, data privacy, and regulatory compliance issues. Those are all there. But then of course there's also deep fakes, which is another AI related threat, kind of appropriately placed, I think. In the threat priorities there, it's down at around 14%. It's important, but more of a boutique threat than a day-to-day issue like that sort of rapid pace of malware development and patching.
It's a boutique threat until it makes major news like that. Do
True.
you guys remember that Hong Kong incident where the company, the person at the company in the finance department had a deep fake of their CEO on
Yeah.
video? Yeah,
Yep.
explaining. So,
Yeah.
we also have a question in the chat um, that I'm gonna rise up. Before that, the one comment, it is interesting because AI is part of basically all threats now.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
feel right. We just said like, well, deepfakes is kind of like AI is AI threats, and malware is related, and phishing is better because of the
Yeah.
ability to mask, do better phishing attacks. So it's interesting to see just like when you put this list in front of, however, the buyer, like what are they like what are they marking, right? They're
Yeah.
saying deep fakes, they're saying AI threats, they're saying both of them at once, or maybe they're just picking one. And that's extremely interesting just to know how people are thinking of the terminology
Yeah.
of what we're doing
Yeah.
here.
True.
Um, all right, we have a question about this data. Does AI threats mean AI driven attacks threats or attack threats to the AI deployment?
Yeah. So wait a minute. Could you say
So
that again?
yeah. I think they're saying, does AI threats mean AI driven attacks? Like AI is attacking people via phishing or attacking systems via the Hugging Face, sort of like the frontier model escapes?
Right.
Or is it more threats like prompt injection to an AI model?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. We just phrased it this way, AI threat. So it's really sort of open to the interpretation of whoever responded. It's a great question and possible, split it out maybe next year as, the landscape on this survey has changed so much from last year. AI was way down the list. It was important and emerging, but this year it's just dominant. Okay.
Thanks
Um,
for calling that out, though, Gianna,
yeah,
because I think it's, this survey will evolve over time. And so it's great to get feedback like that and sort of how to delineate the differentials there. That's really great.
yeah, absolutely. Um, all right. Well, Gianna, before we move to our next slide, can you open up the next poll?
Absolutely. Sorry, like takes a minute. I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, please hold. All right, the next poll is live. We want to know because I think Scott is hinting at the next slide being about market interpretation of AI features or AI solutions. So we want to know, folks on the webinar here, how aggressively are you marketing AI slash, our old school way of saying it, machine learning? And some of you who've been in this industry for a while remember, and I actually worked at a company where we said this too. It's like, it's not AI, it's machine learning. AI isn't real. And look how far things have come from a marketing perspective. All right, the poll. All right, we'll give it like 5 more seconds to answer this. This is really interesting. How often and how aggressively are you marketing AI and machine learning in your solutions, security audience, security marketers, right? Early and often. We definitely make sure potential customers are aware. Minimally, we're worried about the fatigue of the message of AI, or we don't talk about AI capabilities unless asked, which is at least a small portion of y'all are answering it that way, which is extremely interesting.
Yeah.
All
Yeah, I
right.
can't wait to see these results.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Sharing the poll now.
All right. Okay.
Can everyone see?
Yeah, so it's really stacking from top to bottom. The early and often is almost half. Um, 35% are making sure customers are aware. We've got a few people worried about the AI message fatigue, and then yeah, 4% we don't talk about it.
We
Great.
don't talk about it.
Thanks for sharing.
That's
I
awesome.
do
You
think
know,
the AI message fatigue is real. Like, and I think I'll be addressing some things later about how do we get around that?
mm,
How do we kind of break through that AI noise, so to speak?
yeah.
Anyway, some ideas later.
All right. Well, let's that'll lead us nicely into our next slide. So I moderate a lot of webinars, something like I think I did about 170 over the last year, and many of them are cybersecurity focused. And just across the board, presenters get kind of jokingly cynical about AI. They'll say, get out your AI bingo cards, or count how many times we mention AI in this presentation, or, we're not going to mention AI in this session, or you're getting a reprieve. And it definitely does feel like it's AI, AI, AI all the time. But what we're seeing here in this slide indicates that buyers really do want to hear about it. So the question was, how important is it that cybersecurity vendors provide AI ML powered features in their solutions? And 77% said it's important. So they want to hear about how you're using AI to make their jobs better or to even make defense, possible in an environment of machine speed attacks. Only 15% said it's not important, and then we had a couple of not sures or I don't knows. But I think that's a really strong signal that, if you've got AI features in your product, they want you to brag about it. They want you to explain it. They want you to demo it. What this slide shows is that AI powered features are kind of table stakes for a lot of cybersecurity solutions. And what this data also suggests is that it's not enough to sort of hand wave that we've got AI enhancements. We really believe that the buyers are looking for specifics. What is the AI doing in your product? How does it work? What are the capabilities? How is it trained? How mature is it? And, most importantly, how does it specifically help with the problem you solve for the buyer? Um, Stephanie, anything you want to say about those results or about getting around?
Well, I was just going to say, it's a combination. I think the business value piece is missed a lot when, AI is sort of brought up to get the eyeballs but it's really like, how do you translate that message across the IT and LOB or business divide? I think there's a potential, I think, for vendors to really help each side, arm them with language that's going to help translate the value of AI or
Yeah.
the AI functionality to business people don't always know how to like converse with the IT around AI and vice versa, IT to business. So to have more collaborative content pieces that are speaking about how does AI impact the full scope,
Yeah.
and translate to business value. I think that's where there's opportunity
Yeah.
for education from the vendor side.
Okay. All right.
There's a
Excellent.
good comment in the chat, which I want to bring up. Cassidy says, I worry about the fatigue and would love to not use it at all, but I can't seem to avoid. And so, what parts use AI? LOL. Yeah. So that's the thing. It's a very interesting line we all walk, right, as marketers in this industry. We're told by, like you said, Scott, like the jokers and the cynics, like, haha, AI and everything. It's all, a dog and pony show. But I have anecdotally heard too from members of the community. We get a lot of feedback in the Cybersecurity Marketing Society on the market of the industry because our members are all security companies selling security products and services.
Yeah.
I've heard that some buyers are reallocating budget from certain categories into AI, and so AI security, traditional security solutions, some vendors are losing out and losing having budget go down because it's being reallocated into AI security as
Yeah.
its own line item. So
Yeah.
I believe that wherever the driving is coming from whatever forces, whatever motion, the AI actually does matter to a lot of our buyers.
Yeah.
That's a really valid point about the budget piece. I think that's again when there's a business mandate, they're going to tie whatever they're working on to AI so they get the budget for it. And that's a real thing. That's the other thing is, and I don't know what you both feel about this, but I feel like, AI is going to be commoditized in the future. I think it's going to be what cloud was 10 years ago. It's going to be exactly the same thing where we're really not even going to really be talking about it anymore. I think so. Whoever said that, I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I think down the road, I think that's going to be the state of things. So it'll just be implied
Yeah.
in most instances, like cloud has been. So
Stephanie, I couldn't agree more about like down the road, it's going to sort of disappear into the infrastructure of
yeah,
everything.
it
But
will.
but for now, I think there's a tendency, like, when you're, in marketing or, in tech journalism or moderating, like we all are, you just sort of get fatigued because you're talking about it. You feel like you're talking about it all the time. But the thing is that there's a real hunger for that information. So
That's interesting. Kind of like when you're doing your brand or your message and you're repeating it so often, you're like, I got to change it. It's like, no, your audience has not actually heard your specific message yet,
yeah,
even though you're sick of it because you're in house. We have one other
exactly.
question. Let me know if we want to save it for later. But Scott posted in the Q and A, and folks, post in the chat, post in the Q and A. We're going to answer the questions and make sure that you get answers to all your questions. Scott said, curious that in addition to AI fatigue, how do we overcome the differentiation challenge when everyone is talking AI all slash most of the time? Stephanie or
Great.
Scott, do you have? Oh,
No, I was going to say great question. And I think we'll get into that a little bit. So I'll just ask let's put a pin in that. And
mhm,
I think we'll talk a bit about that. And then if you want more detail, we can certainly go in.
absolutely. Next slide, Scott.
Let's do it. Okay, so this one is about top drivers of cybersecurity investment. So we asked about the top three motivators for, engaging in a new cybersecurity solution, purchase, and the top three are pretty instructive. So the biggest, the plurality was proactively reducing risk at 40%. And then you had gap and security coverage at 35%, regulatory compliance requirements 32%. What I what I pull from this is that buyers are seeing themselves as proactive. They want to be marketed to as if they are tackling risks before they become a problem. So consistent with the overall AI theme, I think, the biggest thing that people need to be proactive about right now is AI. But and then the next up is that gap in security coverage at 35%, regulatory compliance. One other really interesting point here, back on slide 7, we talked about shifting business priorities, and that's where cybersecurity was more important. That's where, it was like the 65%. We're saying it's going to be, it's more important than it was. The number 2 selection on that slide was cost reduction and efficiency. But when it comes to cybersecurity spending specifically, it's kind of not the case at all. It's if you look here at the final option on top drivers of cybersecurity investment, cost efficiency, tool consolidation is at the bottom of the list here. Um, and that's a nuanced thing. We'll keep coming back to this, but so these all offer guidance for potential messaging. Buyers view themselves as proactive rather than responsive, and while cost reduction and efficiency is important overall, that's not what buyers say is driving what is driving the cybersecurity investment. So let's put a pin in that because the data shows an important caveat about that, and we'll come back to it. Okay, and before we go to the next slide, we've got one last poll for you all. This is the last one, so let's get everybody voting, and let's see what we got here. Gianna, can you bring that one up?
It is live. And the
All
question is,
right.
who do you think has the greatest influence over the final cybersecurity purchase decision? And we have some traditional and some untraditional personas in this list. Is it the CISO slash head of security, which a lot of us are marketing to? Is it the CIO, CTO, or IT leadership, which maybe security reports into? Is it the CEO, the CFO slash finance, head of finance, or is it procurement?
Scott and Gianna, I was just thinking this slide that's up right now, like the proactively reducing risk, it lines up directly with the increase in activity and engagement we're seeing around cyber resilience in our audience. Like it's definitely, there's like this, and I feel like cyber resilience is really carving a separate piece for it's standing a little bit apart, obviously, from cybersecurity, but it's also connected, but it's also separate as well. So
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
yeah. That's one of the things with ransomware was sort of the great unifier for cybersecurity and cyber
Yeah.
resilience. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to end this poll, folks. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go. So, who wants to read out the results?
I could do that.
Oh, I'm not sharing them.
I
Sorry,
was gonna
everyone.
say I spoke too soon. I can't read them out until I see them. All right.
This is how you know it's a live webinar, everyone.
That's right. Okay, so CISO, head of security, 42%. That's our number one. And then CFO finance was the number 2 choice, 27%. Um, and then we got some C-suite, and CEO is fourth, and procurement. Okay, great. Let's take a look at what the survey showed.
Oh, cool. I like that. I like that it was like, what do you guys think? And then here is the results.
Yeah. So, you know, in in this case, it was actually, CEOs were the final technical decision maker, in the that's the biggest group. So it's like at 32%. So this is interesting. I suspect, and this is something that we'll you know come back to as we're going back through the data and starting to do cuts with organizational size. But if the buck stops with a CEO at 32%, you know, I wonder how often that's because it's a relatively small organization. So, I wonder if we took out the SMBs, what would happen there? And I suspect, as we get into crosstabs and deeper analysis, I think we're going to find financial and technical decision makers sort of push down the corporate ladder the farther up you go in organizational size. Certainly, that's what we've seen in the past. Um, let's quickly skip ahead to the next one, which was also
Well, before we
financial.
go on, we just want to make sure. Sorry, Scott.
Oh yeah, yeah,
A couple people have asked questions about like size. Pauline, I wanted to know like what's the company size for the respondent? She joined a little bit late.
yeah.
So Scott, do you remember? It was like
It was
I
pretty evenly split. It was like, I think like 25%, 1,000 plus company size. Then there was like a good chunk in the middle. It was pretty evenly distributed
Yeah.
actually across different sizes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we will definitely be doing for the event in November, we're definitely going to be doing more cuts and looking a little bit more deeply at how it differs based on company size for sure. So this is just the first, we just got the data. So it's like fresh.
Yeah. So if anyone is like, "What?" No, no, don't worry. It's because it's probably a smaller size company where that CEO is making that decision. So future B2B here, the team is going to do all those slicing and dicing so we can kind of see by company size. Yeah, no, I know Pauline, right? You're like, "Whoa," at first, but so we'll go on to the next slide, Scott.
Yeah, and this is just kind of similar data when it comes to the financial approval. You've got CEOs, and then CFOs. And we had a really interesting comment there from Cassidy over in the chat, um, that unfortunately I scrolled away from, trying to get back to it. Just
Oh,
about
she was saying that she wishes CISOs were the final decision maker, but unfortunately, she often came up head to head against CFOs and lost deals because of that.
yeah,
Yep.
so that's really interesting. But Stephanie, I know you've done a lot of, you've looked at buying groups, a lot, and I'd love if you could pipe in here just about what we're seeing with buying groups and how this data kind of fits with that experience.
So I do think there might be some, if we did take out the SMB, it would show some difference.
Yeah,
But at the end of the day, it would still show a diverse buying team and buying committee in terms of final decision. So again, this is just final approval. This doesn't even include all the influencers through, for the rest of the buying team. So everything that I've seen is for cyber related purchases, we're looking at anywhere from 6 to 10 people on the buying team. That's like an average. And there's some companies that have more than that. But again, this is if we're looking just at who makes the final, decision.
yeah,
I think it really does vary. I think the more of the business personas like the CFO or CEO are getting more involved because of the business mandates that are happening across the board. I think it's and obviously this is what I said, this buying team dynamic, that it's really spanning the IT line of business, um, you know, breadth. And I think that that's what makes it so challenging, that like we had talked about, how do you get to all of those people? And so what I've also seen, truthfully, as it relates to these, this is the final decision. So by the time these people are seeing, there's usually a short list of 3 to 5 vendors that are already been selected by the folks that are doing all the research, usually manager
yeah,
level up. So for you guys, like, how do you get to those people that are doing the research for the short list? So you have to almost have different tactics based on content that is going to sort of be geared more towards that decision maker. But again, if you don't do early stage marketing, you are going to not even be on the short list, because the more that I'm seeing is that the more that vendors are educating buyers earlier in the buy cycle, the more likely they're going to be on the short list.
yeah,
And usually, again, it's a wider buying team that is actually doing that early stage research.
Mm.
So that's the challenge. But again, it's like you have to hit everyone where they are and how they're coming through the cycle. So
yeah.
And Stephanie, Claude is part of the buying team now too.
absolutely, it is. And so I will say I can talk more. I could talk more about that because I've been knee deep in LLM stuff, like as you can imagine, as a publisher. So the one thing I would say, where you're going to get the most exposure from an LLM perspective in terms of people coming in that way for their research, there's a lot of stuff we can't track right now. We will be in the future, I have no doubt, like connecting LLM research tracks to the sourcing of how they end up on your site or how they end up on a publisher site, et cetera. So that's coming. We can't do that right now. But one thing I can tell you is that the way that you will get exposure to your brand is if you align yourself with content richness and depth and breadth from, publishers like us or other people that have collections of content that literally touch the full buy cycle. because the more premium content that's aligned like with all stages of the funnel, LLMs are much more likely to pick up as a source, like 100%. So one of, like, I will tell you as a publisher and managing editorial teams, one thing we're looking very clearly at next year is going wide and deep on everything in terms of content hubs, like making sure that we're surrounding the topics and looking at it from all sides, and multimedia, not just, static PDF or published content, but doing tons of video and podcast and scripts and you name it, we're doing it.
Love it. Yeah, I've heard that too, that the LLMs like multimedia. And there is, yeah, Cassidy is agreeing with you in the chat. Real SME content, they only found from brain trust, from experts, not generic SEO definitions that have already been scraped, not
Yep.
already whatever's being scraped,
Yeah.
coming up with new and original content that is beyond what can be scraped on Stack Overflow and Reddit.
Exactly. Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly.
And for anyone who's like still messaging about like, is it the CEO? This is a wide swath of company sizes, and so Mikal, I saw you had that question. This is not cut by size, so it looks scary, and it's a scary slide. I want to go to the next slide just so people stop. Just so, please
Go
don't
ahead.
report this back to this specific thing back to your like enterprise um buying team. This is like the pre-data, and we can't wait to cut it into
It's the
little
pre-data.
slices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So we're going to slice it all, and then we'll be able to look for enterprise versus mid-market versus SMB, more small business. We're going to do the differentials on how the buying team is different for each of those sets. So don't worry, it's coming.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think we've actually got 5 or 6 cuts of that size data. So
Yeah.
Do you have industry too, or?
I think we do actually. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I always love to know like maritime. I don't know, maritime's one of your industries. That's my favorite
Maritime.
industry. Yeah.
All right.
Pauline, I love that. You said who is it that said, oh, is it Cassidy or I don't know. That's funny.
All
You're
right.
screenshotting all the poll questions. I love it.
Yeah, but please do know that it's spread across company sizes. It's not broken down
Yeah.
by company size yet. Um, Please
Yeah.
know that. So, yeah, the CEO may approve the money, but usually someone else has to create the conviction that the money should be spent. Yeah, that's true, Carrie, regardless if it's the CEO, the CISO, whoever the buyer is. Usually there's a team or a person or someone, a delegate whose job is to say, I think we should go this way. I
Right.
think, it might not be the CISO, they might sign the check, but their VP of InfoSec or a highly regarded security architect, etc. So, all right, Scott, I'll let you get back to explaining the slides. We only have
Okay.
13 minutes left.
Yeah, so
Oh,
these next two I'm gonna burn through pretty quickly. This one is just, a few minutes ago we were talking about drivers of cybersecurity purchasing decisions, and that was kind of a top of funnel, like education, point. This next slide is really more bottom of funnel because you can see the information they're looking for is very different. So when we asked, what are your top 3 decision criteria when selecting vendors? At this point, pricing becomes extremely important. And so this is sort of after they've decided to make a purchase in a technology area, so for cybersecurity purchases, the survey shows they're less interested in pricing or cost saving detail at the top of the funnel. When they get to the bottom of the funnel, no, the pricing rises to the top. Of course, the way to avoid that is to differentiate your product in a way so that you're in a category of one. If your product is less differentiated and you're up against a few other similar products, then it's going to be hard to. They're going to be looking hard at your pricing details and your
and
service
honestly, I've never
features.
seen this question where pricing wasn't number one
Yeah.
ever. Yeah.
Does this contradict like what you shot? And again, this is like the broader set. So this is SMB and bigger and all the sizes of
Yep.
all
Yeah.
the people. So does this contradict what we just saw in the previous question where it said for cybersecurity, like pricing was way at the bottom?
See, I don't think it does because I
Okay.
think that was more of a top of funnel kind of question. Like when they're looking at cybersecurity overall, cost isn't that important. When they get down to picking your product versus a couple other products on the short list, then pricing comes way up.
Yep.
That's the way that I interpret it. And let's hop ahead to the next slide. And this one was just about reasons for replacing a cybersecurity vendor. So, pricing came in there as an important factor, but the number two choice here is really important as well. 22% cited a vendor security incident as a reason for replacing a cybersecurity vendor. So you all know that reputation is even more critical, in the cybersecurity industry and more fragile. And this is just some more data to back up how important it is for companies selling cybersecurity products and services, to have their internal security buttoned up. Okay. And then the final data point that we wanted to show you is just about barriers to cybersecurity investment. And so the big ones here were competing IT priorities, cost of compliance, lack of executive support. Related to that probably is unclear ROI, and then finally vendor pricing. Um, So I don't want to dwell on this one too much. Grab that screenshot if you want it. But let's uh, let's move on to just a quick summary um, of these. Stay visible while security investment is high. This is again getting back to that 65% of organizations increasing their focus on cybersecurity. You've got to engage buyers early and consistently. Want to lead with risk reduction, not product features. Again, that stuff that in the pricing comes in later, becomes important later. Buyers are really prioritizing that reduced risk. Make the AI value tangible. We talked about that quite a bit. Um, Market to the buying committee, not just the CISO. The CISO consistently on those results was pretty low in terms of making the final decision. Now, on the other hand, probably very influential in the process. And then finally, prove why your expertise is different. The buyers want specialist capabilities from, trusted vendors that simplify adoption and demonstrate measurable value. So hopefully there's some actionable stuff in there for you. More to come in the Cyber Marketing Con 2026 timeframe, and we appreciate your questions, which reinforced areas that we really wanted to cut up, and obviously that's important to you too. So that helps us. But Stephanie, back to you.
Yep, just a couple quick slides here, and then I'd love to open it up for questions. So I just wanted to kind of finish up. We've talked a lot today about what cybersecurity buyers expect from vendors. But ultimately, the question for all of us is, as marketers, is how do we put these insights into action, right? So if buyers are engaging across multiple channels, if buying committees are getting larger, which I've seen consistently, and if marketers need to influence buyers well before they're actively evaluating vendors, then no single tactic is going to solve that challenge. That's the truth. And that's really the thinking behind how we're approaching the cybersecurity market at Future B2B. We see the opportunity as creating a connected ecosystem around the cybersecurity buyer, regardless of whether they're IT, business, or somewhere in the middle. It starts with trusted content. Everything comes back to content, in my estimation, because buyers need credible information in this age of AI to understand their challenges and explore solutions. So we combine that with a verified first-party audience and buyer intelligence that helps identify the accounts and audiences that are showing signs of being in market. And we nurture them with the content based on where they are in the buy cycle. From there, we can activate those audiences through targeted campaigns and demand gen programs designed to move buyers from engagement towards action. And importantly, we close the loop with performance insights, understanding what's working, optimizing along the way, and helping marketers demonstrate impact. So rather than thinking about content, audience, intent, and lead gen as separate products or tactics, we're increasingly thinking about how they work together around the buyer journey. And that really comes back to one of the biggest messages from the research today. Cybersecurity buying isn't linear. We know this, and it isn't driven by one person, and it's not influenced by one interaction. The marketers who win will be the ones who can build trust early, surround the buying committee, stay relevant throughout the journey, and prove value. And so this last slide here, if I had to distill everything down from the research that we've seen today, it's really coming down to three things: engaging earlier, reaching wider, and that's tied to content, obviously, and prove more. And I won't get too much into the rest of this, but I think we should leave it open to questions at this point,
Yeah.
Gianna.
We have a
But I
lot of
think
questions.
good, awesome.
um, so I thank you so much again, like Future B2B. They're sponsoring the community and helping us reach more marketers and help more marketers in the cybersecurity industry, and of course sponsoring our conference as well. So we can't wait to see all the details and breakdowns of this data in just a few months in November at Cyber
And
Marketing
I'll be
Con.
at the show, so I'd love to meet any of you. So I'd love to meet anyone who wants to connect. I'd love to, and get nerd out about research data. I love that.
Love it. We have some questions from the chat. Anyone else who has remaining questions and we don't get to them, we will get to them afterwards in a blog post. The question from earlier, in addition, about AI fatigue, I want to make sure we touch on it. How do you guys, and maybe Stephanie, this is a good question for you. And also Scott, since you talk to the buyer 170
A
times
lot.
a year,
Yeah.
how are you seeing companies overcome that differentiation challenge? We said, say how your AI helps, provide statistics and facts. It's really hard to compete when there are like 64 plus minus AI SOC vendors out there, or just in that category alone.
Yeah.
Do you have any other advice for the audience?
Scott, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
You can go ahead and then I'll add in if that's all right.
Yeah, I think content mix is important to differentiate yourself. And I think for AI, obviously, because it is becoming so commoditized, I think you have to tie anything, whether your feature and functionalities within your product are AI based. It really comes down to proving the business value. And I just said that on my previous slide. It's tying it back to the business mandates that are coming down and being able to have, translate that. So if it's an IT person or a CISO or a security practitioner that is reading your content, make sure that you arm them with language that will translate what the business value of your product does, what the business value is. And I think part of that is, making sure you have not just the educational like awareness, but like really like meaty down funnel content that is not just product like in your face. It's like doing a customer success story showing how it proved the value to that actual organization. Like that's invaluable stuff. Like, and then making sure you put that into a video format, into a PDF format, all formats, and surround, like get as much as you can. And then, but I really think it's about really tying everything back to business value right now is really important.
I will add to last year's Cyber Marketing Con, Andrew Stifel, who's a product marketer over at Endor Labs, did a talk about anti AI washing. So, greenwashing in the industry is when you say your product is good for nature and it isn't. There's this new world of like AI washing where um, you have your security solution. You want to say it's AI. You don't know how. Is it AI enabled? Is it AI native? Are you saying the right thing? So that's available for replay for anyone who has attended our conference last year or who wants to get a replay ticket. And we will have also content on this at Cyber Marketing Con. I know it's in 3 months, but this is like a lot of the talk in the community. And if you're not a member of the Cybersecurity Marketing Society and you're an in-house marketer at a security product or services company, please join us, cybersecuritymarketingsociety.com. We have these conversations with your peers literally all day, every day. We have another question from Carrie. If buyers are forming their vendor shortlist through AI before engaging with sales, how should vendors and partners rethink their joint content strategy to make sure they're showing up together in those AI driven recommendations? Carrie, are you talking about partners like VARs, MSPs that you're partnering with? Or are you talking about partners like Future B2B? Carrie. let's make an assumption that it is about not partner marketing with VARs and resellers, but with partners like Future B2B. So, Stephanie, do you want to take that?
You're saying,
Joint
so she's asking about the content strategy. Is that what you're
joint
saying?
content strategy. Yeah. So if you're working with
Yeah.
a third party
So I
publisher.
think it's a combination of things because you want to rely on partners like Future B2B to help align your brand with the strongest content that is attracting LLM, right? Driven citations, right? You want to make sure you're one aligning your brand with that, so you're front and center when people are landing eventually on say IT Pro or etc. So that's the first thing. You want to have a credible publisher that is having, has breadth of content around the topics that you care about as a vendor, right? And then secondly is thinking more in an integrated way about surrounding the buying team. So not just based on persona, like persona specific content, but also just in terms of, I know funnel's been used forever. I think there's people are saying using different terms now
Right. We
in
heard
terms of
flywheel the other
flywheel is the
day.
big thing, and obviously we have a flywheel. So, but I think it's more important to make sure you're covering the content pieces that really can take the buyer through the funnel, and not just an individual. It's the buying committee. It's everybody. So that means you need to have content that is really at each phase, but also looking at it. And I would say realistically, you can look at it from like an IT slant or a security specific slant and then a business slant. I think there's in having making sure I love connecting the dots in content. I think that's the most powerful is when you have a buying team that is trying to figure stuff out together and they don't know how to talk to each other necessarily very well because of their personas. Like arm them with what they need to make that smart decision together and provide insight into how to talk across the aisle. That's to me, I think that's beauty
I
right
like
there.
that. Provide insight in how to talk across the aisle for your whole buying committee.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
such a good point. That's very juicy. All right, we are at the end of our session. Carrie, one more thing for you. We do have an AEO GEO call in a week, so feel free to attend. We talk
Nice.
about AEO GEO on that call, and that also might help you with your question or post in the Slack, Carrie. So all right, Stephanie and Scott, thank you so much for being on our show today. Thank you for the folks who stayed on after the top of the hour. We know you have to go to your next meeting. Any last remaining questions? I'm going to scroll and like pull everything out of the chat and also out of the Q&A, and make sure that we get all of your questions answered. And of course, Future to B2B, Stephanie and Scott will be at Cyber Marketing Con with some sliced and diced data so that we can look at what they previewed for us today with a little bit more of a slicer. I can't wait for that. Thank you both for being on. This was so good.
Thanks
Thanks,
so
Jan.
much,
It was fun.
everyone. Thanks for listening.
Thank you
Thanks, everybody.
all. See you guys soon. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.